but not on purpose, and there was nothing noble about what was going on. Of course, it was ironic William Burke was here on display, since his crimes had included selling his murderously obtained fresh corpses for dissection and display. Medical science, few other areas of study had ever so advanced the quality of life for so many, and the length of life itself. And in the early years of the 19th century, Edinburgh, Scotland was at the forefront of medical science and anatomy. However, at that time, corpses for study could only be obtained through those who had been hanged or died in prison, those who had died from suicide, and those who died as foundlings or orphans. Laws governing corpses were strange. The dead were always in demand, and thus there came into being a new breed of criminal known as resurrectionists, body snatchers. Of course, the bulk of society looked upon those crimes as totally heinous, against any form of religion, horrible. But resurrectionists at least stole the bodies of those who were already dead. Burke, along with his partner, Hare, who managed to avoid the hangman's noose by giving state's evidence against his partner in a full confession and as witness, discovered the decent income to be made in selling corpses to Dr. Knox so that he could excel in his lectures at the university. But digging up bodies was increasingly difficult as loved ones of the deceased began to demand more protection for cemeteries. It was also a heck of a lot of hard work, with the possibility of being caught hanging over one's head. Of course, according to Hare, he was there when the murders were committed. But he wasn't the killer. He only watched as Burke killed his victims, not with brutality or fury, simply for the business commodity of it all. Their first sale had been the body of a man who had died of natural causes, the complication being that he owed money to the rooming house owned by Hare's wife, common-law wife most likely, Margaret. That's when they discovered the easy income and living to be enjoyed off the dead. But in different confessions, it came to light that both men were guilty. One man held a victim down while the other covered the victim's nose and mouth until they asphyxiated, which gave a new term to the English-speaking world, burking. They plied their victims with alcohol first, hopefully to make death easier for the victims, or easier for Burke and Hare to accomplish their crimes. But this had been their method, except in the case of a poor boy some considered simple who'd had his back broken. By accident, as claimed by Hare, or had a sense of cruelty come out in the killers at last? No matter the reason, their victims were usually drunk before being murdered, a little token of kindness one way or another. Then off the bodies had gone to the medical school for lectures on anatomy. Dr. Knox had turned blind and approving eye to the freshness of the corpses he received from Burke and Hare. Students even recognized the body of a beautiful young prostitute. A few of them had availed themselves of her services. They noted a few other characters who were often seen around the city as well. But the killers weren't caught until Burke convinced an older Irish woman, Margaret, or Maggie, Doherty, to come back to drink and stay at his lodging house. The two men had a small problem, but one that was easily solved. Burke and Hare had met in 1827, and at first Burke had roomed with Hare and his wife at their lodging house. But then he and his wife, Helen MacDougall, records didn't show if they were legally married or something closer to common law, moved into their own lodging house by summer. A couple, James and Anne Gray, were already staying at Burke's lodging house. They had to be convinced to move to Hare's to allow for a room in which to commit the murder at Burke's. With the Grays gone, Maggie met her end, and Burke and Hare hid her body under the bed. Alas, for Burke and Hare,